A woman ran outside in terror as if there was something horrifying here. Reaching the main door, she nervously tried each key to unlock the door. At that moment, 4 men in black appeared behind her, walking slowly toward her. She finally managed to unlock the door, only to find that there was still an iron chain locking it. Seeing that the men in black were about to catch her, she desperately squeezed through the gap in the door. But just as she got out, one of the men grabbed her foot. When she woke up again, she found herself in a cramped space. Seeing bloodied bodies continuously falling inside, she realized she had been buried alive. The reason for this fate was that she had uncovered a terrible secret here, and so the woman was forever buried underground. The next day, a devout Sister Cecilia traveled a long distance to this spooky Italian convent, believing she had found the sacred place she yearned for. Little did she know how terrifying this place truly was. She was greeted by the Mother Superior, who warmly welcomed her and asked another sister, Isabel, standing beside her, to take Cecilia to her room to rest. On the way, Isabel explained that this convent was built in 1632, originally serving as a refuge for elderly nuns. There was also a basement here, but it was a forbidden area and no one was allowed to enter. After arriving in the room, Isabel advised Cecilia that if it wasn't absolutely necessary for her to be here, she could still choose not to participate in the afternoon's vow ceremony and leave now. However, Cecilia insisted that she was ready. Seeing her resolve, Isabel didn't say much more, only reminding her not to be late for the ceremony before leaving. Soon, the vow ceremony began. A priest named Father Tedeschi led Cecilia to the ceremony site. The priest asked if she was willing to abandon material wealth and follow God with devotion.
I do.
Cecilia then kissed the ring on the priest's hand, marking the end of the ceremony. Afterward, everyone gathered for a meal. Cecilia and the priest chatted over drinks. She told him about an incident in her childhood when she fell through ice into a river. By the time rescuers arrived, her heart had stopped beating for 7 minutes, yet she miraculously survived. Cecilia believed this was a sign of God's favor, and she had been searching for the reason behind it ever since. During the gathering, Cecilia went to the restroom and suddenly heard the sound of a woman crying outside. When she returned, she found the hall completely empty. Following the sound, she walked forward and discovered a person in black lying on the floor in a cruciform position. Cecilia knelt down to ask if they were okay. When the person slowly turned their head, Cecilia was horrified to find they had no facial features. Scared, she turned around to leave, but the Mother Superior suddenly appeared behind her. Cecilia asked what was going on, but the Mother Superior didn't answer. Instead, she took a nail, one used to crucify Jesus, out of a glass box and handed it to Cecilia. The Mother Superior said that the person was suffering and asked Cecilia to end their pain. Overwhelmed, Cecilia fainted on the spot. When she woke up, she found herself confessing before the priest. She thought her fainting was due to drinking too much and sought forgiveness. However, the priest remained silent, and slowly, Cecilia realized he had vanished into thin air. It turned out to be a nightmare, but soon she noticed something was off. Amid the darkness, a white figure appeared. Frightened, Cecilia turned on the lamp only to see the figure disappear. Was she hallucinating? In the following days, life at the convent was monotonous, consisting of prayers and caring for the elderly nuns. A few days later, Cecilia felt nauseous while bathing and soon began vomiting. Concerned, the convent conducted a medical examination, and the results shocked everyone. Cecilia was summoned to the office to repeat her vows before the priest. Afterward, he asked if she had kept her chastity. Although confused by the question, Cecilia firmly stated she had never been with a man, which didn't add up to them. Not simply because they had seen euphoria, but because she was pregnant, and a subsequent ultrasound confirmed it. There was, in fact, a fetus growing inside her womb. The priest proclaimed that it was pure and that they had witnessed a miracle, believing the child to be God's.
Questo bambino è stato concepito senza peccato. Dio è testimone. Abbiamo assistito a un miracolo.
Cecilia, however, was baffled. Why had she been chosen among so many women? The priest reminded her to remember who had saved her as a child and who had guided her there. He said it was all part of God's plan and that this was the reason she had been searching. The next day, Cecilia's status dramatically changed. She became revered as the Virgin Mother. Her identity and position were elevated instantly. From that point on, she no longer had to work and only needed to focus on nurturing the child. Wherever she went, everyone had to stand until she sat down. 4 months later, Cecilia discovered a tooth in her vomit, leaving her unsettled. While bathing in the pool one day, she was suddenly pushed underwater. Struggling, she realized it was Isabel. Cecilia bit Isabel's hand in desperation, forcing her to let go. Cecilia tried to escape, but Isabel grabbed her from behind and pushed her under again. As Cecilia was on the verge of drowning, the commotion attracted other nuns, who managed to pull Isabel away just in time. Cecilia was left shaken. Another ultrasound confirmed she was unharmed, but Cecilia couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She wondered why Isabel had claimed it should have been her. The priest explained that Isabel had mental issues and was jealous of the miracle in Cecilia's womb. But Cecilia wasn't entirely convinced she was truly pregnant and thought about getting checked at a regular hospital. Upon hearing this, the father said that he was a professional obstetrician. At this moment, the doctor also stepped forward and mentioned that he goes to the town's hospital every week to assist with deliveries. It seemed that they were trying to prevent Cecilia from leaving the convent. As Cecilia walked away, troubled by her thoughts, she suddenly noticed 2 men in black standing on the upper floor of a nearby building. Rushing to check, she discovered Isabel had jumped to her death. The convent soon held a funeral for her. Sister Gwen, walking with Cecilia, found the situation too strange. She didn't believe Cecilia could be pregnant without reason and urged her to visit a hospital for a checkup. But as they spoke, the priest happened to overhear them.
It's something that I can see.
Non mi toccare.
That night, Cecilia reflected on Gwen's words and felt she might know something. She decided to talk to her, but upon reaching the courtyard, she heard Gwen's cries for help. Peering through the door, Cecilia saw men in black preparing to cut Gwen's tongue, likely as punishment for her loose words during the day. The next morning, the Mother Superior and the priest were startled awake by Cecilia's screams. When they arrived, they found Cecilia bleeding heavily. The priest instructed them to call the doctor, but it was the weekend, and the doctor was out assisting a delivery. With no other choice, the priest drove Cecilia to the hospital. Meanwhile, the Mother Superior began to clean the bloody bedsheets and discovered a chicken feather on the floor. Investigating further, she found a bloodied cloth bundle under the bed containing a drained chicken. The priest soon received a phone call, stopped the car abruptly, and his expression turned cold. Sensing danger, Cecilia tried to escape, but being pregnant was quickly caught and tied to a chair. The priest produced the rusted nail and explained the truth. To most, it was just an old nail, but to him, it was proof of God's sacrifice. He claimed to have found traces of God's blood and bone fragments on the nail and had successfully extracted God's DNA. His ultimate goal was to resurrect God. Cecilia accused him of being insane, but the priest dismissed her. He wheeled her into the basement, where he showed her the results of 20 years of experiments. The room was filled with jars containing his failed creations. The fetus in Cecilia's womb, however, was their first success. The priest revealed he was once a prominent geneticist whose theories were rejected, leading him to hide in the convent to continue his work. He then branded Cecilia's foot with a heated cruciform iron, calling it a lesson for attempting to escape. Cecilia was locked in a room, and no amount of shouting or banging on the door brought help. As her due date approached, another examination was conducted. While the doctor stepped out to get medication, Cecilia grabbed the cross from her bedside and struck the Mother Superior on the head. Seeing only minor bleeding, she hit her again. When the Mother Superior didn't fall, Cecilia continued attacking her face until it was unrecognizable. Just as Cecilia exited the examination room, her water broke. The baby was coming. At the same time, the priest was observing the nun's prayers from the second floor. Cecilia crept behind him and strangled him until he stopped breathing. As she let go, a passing doctor witnessed the scene and fled in terror. Cecilia picked up a lighter and keys from the floor and headed to the hall to retrieve the nail. She then went to the priest's laboratory, intent on burning everything down. Finding alcohol on the table, she drenched the lab in it, but before she could ignite it, the priest appeared. He approached her, but Cecilia threatened him with the lit lighter. At the critical moment, Cecilia was struck by intense labor pains. The priest seized the opportunity to grab her arm and wrestle for the lighter. In the struggle, Cecilia grabbed a nearby glass bottle and smashed it over the priest's head, disorienting him. Seizing the moment while the priest was stunned, Cecilia quickly fled the laboratory and locked the door behind her. Just as she was about to escape, the priest grabbed her hair. In desperation, Cecilia noticed alcohol leaking from under the door. She lit the lighter and threw it down. Flames instantly engulfed the laboratory, and the priest let out agonized screams. A loud explosion followed, and the priest fell silent. Thinking the priest was finally gone, Cecilia began to leave, but then she heard the sound of a fire extinguisher from inside the lab. The next second, the priest burst through the door. Cecilia ran into the underground tunnels, which were like a labyrinth with countless branching paths. Disoriented and unsure where to go, she ran forward based on instinct. Soon she saw a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. Overjoyed, she rushed toward it only to find a narrow opening. Without hesitation, she crawled through the tight passage. Just as she was about to escape, the priest grabbed her and dragged her back. His face, now hideously scarred and melted from the fire, looked like that of a demon from hell. He pinned Cecilia down and, with a crazed expression, tore her clothes with his teeth. The priest pulled out a small knife, preparing to perform a forced cesarean. He muttered prayers as he began cutting into Cecilia's abdomen. Despite the excruciating pain, Cecilia's hand blindly searched for anything to fight back. With one final surge of strength, she drove the nail into the priest, ending his life. Cecilia crawled out of the cave, finally escaping the horrors of the convent. However, her ordeal was not yet over. A wave of excruciating pain ripped through her abdomen. Enduring the unbearable agony, she gave birth to the child amid screams of life and death. But as she looked at the creature, she realized it was no divine miracle. It was a monster. Determined to end the nightmare, Cecilia picked up a large stone. As the story reaches its end, we are made to understand that she has killed the experiment that was placed within her against her will. The film is not subtle, but its approach matches the bluntness of the cultural issues it addresses. In a time when ancient religions are still used to control women's bodies from pregnancy to death, the metaphors are painted in vivid, prenatal red. It aims to be a modern-day version of Rosemary's Baby, but without the need for actual demons. Instead, the devils here wear white collars, attempting to force Cecilia through pregnancy to what is believed to be the second coming of the Lord. That's all for today's recap. See you in the next one.